New Orleans is at Arizona. That's what's going on. Okay, how do you guys feel about Chris Olave? And then who's your favorite wide receiver in the game? You like Olave or Hopkins?
I like Hopkins over Olave. I like fresh legs against the Saints defense that doesn't have Marshawn Lattimore, and probably more targets for Hopkins than for Olave. And Adam, you deserve all the credit in the world for sniffing out Arizona and how good they've been against the pass. I took a look at what they did defensively last week because they shut down Metcalf and Lockett last week. And what they basically do is they rush 4 defensive players, and then their other 7 defenders all fall back into coverage, like anywhere from 7 to 20 yards downfield. They really deter taking away the big play. It's showing up in the stats. It's pretty much what they do. And the Seahawks countered with a bunch of short passes. And that's zone defense in a nutshell. And I actually thought that Arizona's pass rush was pretty good last week. They can do the exact same thing this week and really limit Chris Olave, who, for all the excitement he's delivered, does have just 4 catches in his last 2 games.
He did leave both briefly with injuries, but he didn't miss a ton of time. But he did miss time.
The second game more so than, or the most recent game more so than week 4.
It is incredible that he still leads the NFL in air yards.
Yeah.
Well, he had a 300-yard air game.
But that's what concerns me, Heath. And the thing is, I have Olave in 2 leagues, and I'm not even considering sitting him. I just think he's been way too good. He makes contested catches. He looks like a freaking stud. So maybe he can beat this matchup, but they are arguably the best against number 1 wide receivers. I think Devontae Adams had 12 yards against them. And they are the best, arguably the best at limiting the deep ball. And this is exactly this is the worst matchup, I think, on paper for Chris Olave.
It is, especially because Michael Thomas isn't there. Like, if Thomas was there, you could argue maybe they'll treat Thomas like the number 1 wide receiver, and Olave is going to have a monster game because some number 2 wide receivers have had decent days against them.
Yeah, but it's the air yards too. I mean, it's the fact that what he does well, you win downfield, is exactly what Arizona takes away very successfully.
How many receivers have had 90 yards against Arizona this year?
I'm going to say 0. Yeah, 0.
How many? It is 0. How many have had 90 yards against them in the last 2 seasons, this season and last season?
No, definitely a handful. 5.
Well, how many is a handful?
5, 6.
You got it, 6.
The 2 players who had the best games against them this year were Juju and Devontae Smith. Juju actually had kind of a high ADOT in week 1. Devontae Smith did not. So it's a lot of yak. That's what they do. They give up yak. They don't give up air yards. But again, so we've laid out this case against Olave, but like I said, I can't get him out of my lineup, especially with those 4 teams on bye this week. Where do you guys have him ranked?
Top 24, but just inside.
I think 20 or 21 is where he is. Like, there are some guys who I probably am not brave enough to start over him, but I have ranked in the same range. Alan Lazard, I might start Lazard over him. I've got Rondale Moore in full PPR back-to-back with him. Josh Reynolds is right in that range.
Okay.
I have Lazard over him by 1 spot.
So let's talk. All right, Kamara's the easy call. Obviously, you're starting him. If you took Eno Benjamin, and the Saints' run defense is not what it's been in the previous 4 years, basically. You took Eno Benjamin, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, and Chris Olave. How would you rank them in PPR?
I would go Hopkins, Olave, Rondale, Eno.
Right now, I have it Hopkins, Eno, Rondale, Olave.
I'm out on Eno. He's a flex at best.
Yeah, see, that's it. I understand the efficiency was awful last week, but assuming that Connor and Williams are both out, he got 18 touches. I don't think his efficiency is going to be as bad as it was last week. It hasn't been all year, so I will just bet on the touches.
Yeah, it was right. 15 carries, 3 catches against a terrible run defense last week. But again, Saints' run defense has been bad. They're giving up 4.64 yards per carry to running backs. They do allow the fewest receiving yards per game to running backs.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm out on it.
But the team that allows the most receiving yards to running backs, he wasn't that good against. Maybe it'll just be a flip.
No, Seattle's got a lot better in that. The Chiefs are the new Seattle through 6 games anyway. But What he had 3 for 28. Like, you'll take 3 for 28 receiving. That's pretty damn good. Pretty damn solid anyway. Okay, so would you start Eno Benjamin or Aaron Jones?
Jones.
Jones. Not quite as obviously as Dave, but yes, Jones.
How about Eno Benjamin or Clyde Edwards-Helaire at San Francisco?
I believe I have Clyde higher, but that one's going to be closer.
Eno Benjamin or Najee Harris at Miami?
I
am double checking where I have Najee before I spew Najee over Eno. I have Eno or Najee higher.
Would you start Chris Olave, Rondale Moore, or a Seahawks wide receiver this week?
Seahawks receiver.
Yeah, lock it.
Would you start Chris Olave, Rondale Moore, or Brian Robinson against Green Bay?
Both receivers.
What's the format?
Half PPR.
Olave, Robinson, Rondale.
Okay.
I'm not starting Rondale unless it's full PPR.
And Zach Ertz is a must start. What about Taysom Hill? What about our good friend Taysom Hill? Where do you have him ranked?
Yay, our buddy Taysom Hill, who, roll the dice every week. Touchdown or bust, tight end. That's what he is.
Top 6 in non-PPR, 12 or 13 in full PPR.
I mean, that sounds about right. Cardinals against everybody, it's 4.3 yards per carry this season. Ranked 20th in yards before contact allowed. So there's a chance. There's a chance that Taysom could rip off a couple of decent runs and always a chance that he can score.
I don't really even think that how other teams have been against the run applies to Taysom Hill.
Me either.
How come?
He's a complete, not completely unique, but it's not like they're handing the ball off to him and have some scheme to hit the certain hole. Like he's running read options and all kinds of things that other teams mostly don't do. It's kind of like Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Like they can face a good run defense and just gash them because it's a different run offense than those defenses are used to face.
I agree to a point, but I also think that the Saints would be more willing to put Taysom Hill on the field more if it was a favorable matchup. Like if they were going up against a team that you knew, like the Seattle game is an example of that. They took on one of the worst run defenses in the league. Look what Taysom Hill did.
Would you start Taysom Hill in full PPR over any of the following players? George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson.
Nope.
Pitts is the one that's really, really tough. I would probably start Pitts, but in non-PPR, it's
bust tight ends.
I am going to have to start him over Dalton Schultz this week, unfortunately, because I just won't know about Dalton Schultz's status by the Thursday night game. But if in a world where Dalton Schultz were completely healthy, even with how bad he's been with Cooper Rush, I would start him over Taysom.
100%.
It's who is more likely to score, Taysom Hill on 3 to 5 carries or Kyle Pitts on 3 to 5 targets?
See, I think Hill will have more than 3 or 5 carries. I think he'll get closer. I think he's had like 9 or 10 touches. But the past couple of games, he had 4 pass attempts last week.
But his history says even if it's the same number of rushes for Hill and targets for Pitts, Hill's way more likely to score.
Yeah, much more. Yeah,
Well, that's why you rank him ahead in non-PPR. I think it's closer in full PPR.
And Kyler Murray is a must-start guy this week. So, DSTs. Any interest in a DST?
I don't think so.
Okay.